couple of minutes left, I want to talk about the ways of Wall Street. And first I want to ask you about executive compensation. By capping the pay that executives get at those largest firms that got bailout money, how does that further the goal of paying the taxpayer back?
7 firms, very important, that when we give these firms exceptional assistance to save them, allow them to survive, that we're protecting the taxpayers' investments, and that the resources we gave them are not going to pay excessive compensation to their executives. That's a basic thing of fair. It's fair and just, and it's necessary. And Ken Feinberg has done a very good job balancing that imperative with the basic imperative we all have is to get our money back as quickly as possible.
But what if the people who are capable of stabilizing these companies and becoming profitable again leave, undermining the effort for these firms to pay the government back? If that happens, would these curbs be a mistake?
We were very concerned about that from the beginning, and he had to balance some very difficult kind of choices. I think he's found a very good balance among them.
But you have no way of knowing that.
Well, you can't be sure.
Right.
But look think about it this way, David. Look at how the market has reacted to the news about the reforms he put in place. And I don't see any concern in how the market.
You don't see an exodus at these 7 firms?
No.
You don't think people will leave?
I worry about this a lot, but I think he's got the balance right.
Do you think a company like AIG, would you like to see it prosper, make a lot of money again, and be successful?
What I would like to see AIG do, and this is what AIG is doing, is to bring down the risk that brought that company to the edge of collapse and to restructure its business so the taxpayer can get out.
Would you like it to be successful?
I'd like it to be successful enough the taxpayer can get out.
And then after that, you don't care what happens?
No.
The issue of whether AIG should pay bonuses, as they're going to pay another $200 million in bonuses next March. Should they pay that?
He's got a bunch of choices ahead for a number of firms about 2010, but those choices are his to make.
Right.
And as I
said, you spoke out against AIG when they made their last round of bonuses, so should they pay these?
But he'll work through those things, but I leave that to him. And he's showing exceptionally good judgment. He's a remarkably effective guy, and he's done a very good job in a very difficult set of choices.
You talk about avoiding risks. My question is, how can you justify a company like Goldman Sachs making so much money, as it's now doing, by taking some of the trading risks that it's taking right now, after it was saved by taxpayers, and while it enjoys a guarantee from the government because it's too big to fail?
Yeah, we're not going to let the system go back to the way it was. And this was a very good few weeks for
financial reform. Is it not back the way it was?
No, it's not. And it's not going to go back to the way it was. Barney Frank and Chris Dodd are moving comprehensive financial reform through both houses of Congress now. Chairman Dodd is drafting a comprehensive bill. Chairman Frank, working with the House Financial Services Committee, has passed through the committee very important reforms to give consumers better protection and to prevent kind of risk building up in the system that brought the system to the edge of collapse, left taxpayer exposed. And I think we're making a lot of progress. I'm very encouraged by how much progress they've made.
But Goldman Sachs is taking huge risks now in some of the trades it makes.
Look, the critical...
True or not true?
Well, let me just say what we're trying to achieve through reform, David, and this is why it's so important.
But why can't? But that's a straight-ahead question. Whether they are doing things now that are risky after having been saved by the government and by having a guarantee that the government will save them again.
Right now, what's happening across the financial system is, for the first time in almost 18 months, the credit markets are opening up. Companies are able to raise capital again. And the big risk we face now is not that banks are taking too much risk. The big risk we face right now is banks are going to take too little risk after having getting it wrong and run up to the crisis. And that's why you see across small businesses, other parts of the country today, the kind of financial headwinds, a classic credit crunch risk that could slow recovery. The big risk we face now is that banks are going to overcorrect and not take enough risk. We need them to take a chance again on the American economy. That's going to be important to recovery.
Final question. Away from the policy, let's make it a little bit more personal to a family out there that's struggling to save, wants to send their kids to college, but doesn't frankly know what to do with what money they may have left. What should they be doing with their money? What is your advice?
You're seeing them do the rational thing now, David. You're seeing Americans start to save again. After a long period where people were not putting enough aside against the risk of a recession or a job loss, you're seeing people start to save again, and that's a healthy, necessary adjustment. It's going to make sure that it'll help make sure that growth is more stable, more sustainable in the future.
Secretary Geithner, thank you.
Nice to see you.